you all know who this is. This is Leah, the character that I've been using to substitute as the generic face, right? Except she's not so generic. She's got personality through her design. But I haven't had the time to really flesh her out. So I thought I would take the time to make this lesson about creating characters with a story, with a meaning, right? Sometimes it's okay to just create characters because you've got like a sudden burst of inspiration. That's fine. But if you really want a solid character, it typically helps to choose like a key feature or a key design that will help characterize this character as like unique in its own special way. So let's call it a birthmark for Leah, right? Right now, I just put her in like a generic t-shirt and undies because I haven't decided on what type of theme I wanted her to do. But as you've seen her kind of profile that I've done for her, you already have a sense of like how I was heading towards for her characterization, right? You can see that I've created sort of angular eyes, a sort of slender body, a short haircut to give that mature vibe. And as I mentioned in like the features video and the females versus male, I talked a little bit about how using these specific like variations in the main traits can help develop a character's personality. And because these traits have been given sort of, implicit design choices, right? Implicit stories. Like when you see a character with slanted eyes, with like really slitted, closed, half droopy eyes, you sort of assume that maybe they're either sleepy, evil, or they got something wicked going on, right? And so let's write down some of the traits for Leah based on this character design that I've already, sort of headed towards that direction. Leah can be described as perhaps she's sort of cunning, more mature, cunning/sly. She might be otherworldly because I made her pupils sort of like cat irises and pupils. She's got short haircut, so maybe she's like more mature-ish. Now, I previously mentioned that I added these two hair thingies because I felt her hair was too bland. In this case, I want to go for a more fantastical vibe, which is the only reason I added those hair strands. Whereas if you have her hairstyle in the original, maybe you're going for a more modern steampunk kind of theme. And so that's something you have to take into account when you're designing the character. If you're going to add elements that you wouldn't typically see in a normal day environment, then that would usually suggest like, oh, you're designing a character for a more imaginable, fantastical kind of world. And I know right here, Leah's sitting here looking at us asking, really? You really don't know who I am? Yes, I'm sorry. I haven't had the time to develop you, boo. And so that's why we're taking the time here to explore a little bit more. And so what are some other things we can sort of distinguish Leah from everyone else, right? Maybe her outfit or her earring contains her powers, right? Or contains a special jewel. Or maybe her unique thing might be her China choker. It doesn't exactly completely wrap around the neck, right? So maybe a weird floaty design choker. We know that her eyes are definitely going to be a standout because she does have these very beautiful, very sort of scary eyes, right? Because they're like cat irises and pupils that you wouldn't see. And we distinguish her with her little 2 eyelash. So that's another feature that we're going to try to keep throughout the design. And since she has this kind of cat eye kind of vibe, maybe her choker is going to have a bell instead. Or maybe her earring is a bell. If we make her earring the bell, I can only assume that then her choker can remain that weird floaty thing. And so let's test it out. right here, right? Do a little quick sketch, see how that works. And a lot of times character design is all about trial and error and seeing what works and what doesn't. And so you shall see how I am messing around. So it's a bell, maybe it's like this kind of bell, versus if I kept her earring that geometric and then had her choker become a bell. I definitely think earring should be the bell because you can see how like it's a little too heavy-handed with the balance, like two things hanging off. You want it to be asymmetrical to be more interesting to look at, hence why I made her earring on the left side this kind of hoop earring that has like a chain. What are some other things we can consider when we're designing her clothes? Well, oops. Well, maybe for her clothes, I want to have a sort of cape, right? And so that cape's going to be something that distinguishes her, right? And it helps markate what environment that she's going to be living in. So her cape is going to be a feature that has to be unique, her cape. Don't know how it looks yet, but we will talk about that in a different video about how to design using shapes rather than stressing too much about like knowing every single little detail right now. But we do know that we want our cape to be unique, and effectively that cape will create a really nice silhouette for us, right? Is Leah a person that wears dresses or pants? She could alternate in between, but if we're making her base design, we want to decide how do we personalize her character, right? We're getting Boss Bee vibes from her, so I'm going to decide that I want to give her pants. Maybe ripped pants, or even a suit, pantsuit. Or another option is a long pencil skirt, because I can imagine her sort of the mage, mature mage kind of vibe, right? With a long pencil skirt, see? Like that. But we shall see. Overall design, we will figure that out later. Some other things we want to think about is what type of shoes would she be wearing, right? Do we want solid heels like this? Do we want broken up? Do we want something more inventive? Like that. If she's wearing the pencil skirt, maybe it would pair up nicely with these two, right? So now we're starting to find combinations that might work. If she's wearing ripped pants, I guess it could work with this or this, but these gladiator heels really aren't doing it for me, at least design-wise. And so I think we have a good grasp of how we might want to design the clothes and her outfit. So let's try putting these things together, right? Do a couple of sketches of various combos of these. All right, Leah, don't worry. We're going to give you some cool ass clothes soon. So what we're going to do is we're going to start putting stuff onto Leah and see how they work, right? So we said we wanted that cape to be unique. And I know I want a sort of split sleeve sort of cape. With maybe a collar like that. But in my mind, I'm imagining a sort of mix between Western and Asian inspirations. And so if we're going to do that, I want to make sure that we have a sort of more Asian looking underclothes. So her cape is going to be darker than the rest of her other clothes just because her character feels like more mysterious, and so she's going to take on a more dark vibe. And so we were playing around with the idea of a skirt. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. And you can see I'm just putting very general sort of shapes. Try to map out how I want to see the full on outfit. I'm thinking I don't like the skirt anymore. Maybe I'll make it a slitted skirt like this instead. That's one option. Not really feeling it right now. Doesn't feel like it quite captures that mix between Asian and Western. We'll probably scrap it. Let's try another one. This time we're gonna maybe extend the sleeves, make the cloak much longer, try to get those types of like diamond shaped ends that are so classical of Chinese and Asian style clothing. She already has a choker, so we do not want anything else to cover her neck too much. Let's try some pants, maybe those will work out better. You're seeing me put in the hair to try to figure out overall vibe. She definitely looks a lot more masculine with those pants. Not sure if I want that for her because I do want girl boss vibes, but I don't want her to seem overly masculine, right? Yeah, I'm not feeling it. So let's try again. This time we're going back to the dress idea because I think that really helps sell her as more feminine. As it seems, we may have to scrap the whole choker vibe, of course, in order to be able to fit more of the traditional Chinese kind of Mandarin collar. Little bell, so maybe I have to put some more bell elements throughout. Okay, let's scrap this skirt idea. All right, let me tell you my thinking process right now. Since we decided that we want maybe say a bell or more cat themed things to sell her whole identity as like very sly, I'm trying to consider how to go about creating that shape, right? So I'm guessing that I'm gonna put in the hair first so I have a better vibe of how her overall design's gonna look. Because her hair plays a big part in her character design. And so now that I put in her hair, I know that I'm gonna need her cape to not also have those flappy things, maybe, or we'll see how it works. Okay, so her hair, we're doing a mandarin collar. Okay, I like that side sweep kind of thing going on. So if I put in the cape, to this point, maybe her hairstyle needs to change a little to match it. But I did want that mix of Western. Let's just keep pushing, testing things. Don't worry too much about whether it works or not. That's the only way you're gonna work out through your ideas, right? So I do a traditional qipao. And then I give her like interesting shoes. Maybe? In which case maybe her cape needs to act like this more. Looks interesting, that's for sure. Jump cut. So I did two more silhouettes while we were gone, and I think I found some of the best features that I want to combine with. So I'm going to show you how I usually do that. So I did these two. I decided I really like this kind of robe Han Dynasty Japanese style kind of crisscross, but I also like the way there's these bells right here. So maybe I'll combine some of these features. So maybe I'll combine this rope part and then keep the bells here. So let's bump these baby out of the way. Shrink them. All right, we're gonna duplicate this layer as our base. And we're gonna do some modifications right now. We're gonna have the cape be the same color as her robes. Just because I feel like the silhouette itself looks better. Right, like you saw how I was trying to break up the form, but I felt like that was just a little too nuanced. And any good character design means it's simple enough that you can recognize it even in its most crude form. I believe Ross Strauss has once said, like, you want it so that even a 5-year-old child can draw it. And so that's why I'm trying to keep things really simple right here. The shape's really simple. Here's the little bell. And instead of this, maybe I'll opt for something more like this kind of lacy pattern or something like that. This right here is looking too symmetrical, so we gotta break it up, gotta spice it up. Something like that, maybe. What we're gonna do is also emphasize on those two little hair thingies that I made for her, so it looks kind of like cat ears almost, right? And so now that we've chosen like a general design that we sort of like, right? We gotta now pose it well, right? Because she shouldn't just stand like T-posing. It's kind of boring. So I'm gonna just show you real quick on how you can use storytelling to make some decisions about how you might decide how to pose. And in the next video, I'll be talking about more about character tropes and how overall shape can help you make good decisions on posing and like overall dynamic impressions, right? So since we have chosen you are the one right here, some things we might want to consider going back to our list of traits. She is cunning, sly, mature, so poses that we might consider are ones where she has her hips leaning on one leg and her hip is jutted out. I promise you I can draw. So hip, jut that out. Right, and then maybe she has her hand on her waist. Maybe. Or another option we might consider is one where she's like sort of pouty, right? So she has her arms crossed, sort of relaxed. She's turning towards us, but she is 3/4, so we get to see her prop her leg out. Maybe something like that, right? Or maybe something that plays a little bit more to her otherworldliness, though, and her identity as a mage. Maybe she's posing like cunning with her leg raised out like this while doing some kind of mage shiz. Right, that's also another option. And it'll help showcase some of her outfits right here floating, right? And it'll showcase her identity. Or maybe we might even consider her sort of leaning against a wall or something like that, and she's got her legs crisscrossed, real sexy like. Get you that mature vibe. And it'll create some really interesting silhouettes because of how the fabric will fall. Regardless of what we choose, I think any of these poses would be interesting like character shots for her. It just depends on if you were to do this for a client or something, maybe they have like a particular pose they might prefer or like. And so if I were to choose for myself, maybe I would choose something like this because it showcases her identity as like a mage, get some really nice flowy robes, and you could get your hair like all flowy and stuff, and you can do like even figure out like what kind of magic runes would look like for her. Right? And like, so how you might be asking, like, I skipped over a couple of steps, like, how did I decide which design I liked? Well, here's the thing, these first two don't quite work just because you see how disjointed this shape is with this bottom part. It's disjointed, so it wouldn't work together. I feel like this is a different style in comparison to this. Whereas this one, there's a little too much empty room up here. And these pants right here are not working for her because I want girl boss vibes, but not super masculine, kind of genie vibes. Meanwhile, the first design, while I like the pencil skirt, it lacked some of the Asian inspired elements that I wanted to incorporate into her design, right? Because I am most inspired and I have a sort of a desire to try to integrate some of my own culture into my work self, and I just love works like that. So obviously, as much as I love pencil skirts and how sexy she looks, I feel like this design kind of falls flat, especially when we're trying to come up with new things and not necessarily always, follow the same things, right? So let me put these on a different layer and then separate them out so you can see just how I quickly created a sort of pose for my character just through silhouetting. Unlike me, you should always save your work periodically so you don't end up losing all your progress. And another hot tip is that with these silhouettes, it's so much easier for you to draw figures and you don't have to stress so much about proportions because you're just looking at shadows and silhouettes and you can really like identify quickly like, does this look right? Right? You can fix the angles real quick. You don't have to like go back and redraw every single line. You can just erase that little shadow, push it out more, push it out in less, etc., right? Because during this stage, you're just trying to capture feeling and not necessarily capture every single little detail. So again, what were her main features? Just gonna do a quick summary about it. Who is Leah? Hopefully she's happier now that I've given her more specific design, right? Who is Leah? We made sure that her earrings are going to be bells. They're going to be bells, maybe something like this, with like little carvings in them or something like that. Leah is someone with these cat eyes. She is sort of smug looking. She has these 2 hair strands sticking out as like her characteristic trait. She has the choker, the interesting half-done choker. And she has like, general, really a lot of bells all around her. So I'm guessing we're going to summarize her as sort of this like cat themed mage that's inspired by like Western yet also sort of more Japanese Asian style kind of outfits. And so hopefully that was a little bit helpful for how I go about with creating a general story or like some guidelines for how I should approach designing a character, because it's easy to just create like a very generic girl, right? A girl with a bob, but like what makes them special, right? You gotta figure out some particular feature that makes them special, whether it is that they have only one eye, they have a blind patch, and also big old metal armor, right? Or something like that. Maybe that's what makes them special, right? Or even if it's just a normal everyday West, like modern society girl, maybe they have a hair streak, right? Maybe they have a mohawk or something. Regardless, it will always help to have a certain like unique characteristic to sort of showcase your character, be like, I'm unique, I'm individual. Because how else are we going to make sure in the mangas that we can recognize the protagonist between the background characters, right? Can't just have student A look like protagonist Kun, right? Anyway, see you in the next video where I talk about posing some more and designing characters, like a whole character lineup using shapes and all that stuff.